Hi guys, episode 7 now of Mamemeister's High Score Kerfuffle Season 4, and last week we were playing the classic Defender, released by Williams Electronics in 1981. There's no doubting the importance of Defender in the history of video games, and it's definitely a great game. However, I didn't really enjoy it this week. The game looks amazing for 1981 with all the colours and particle effects, it plays really fast and sounds awesome. My biggest issue with this game though, it is just too difficult to be enjoyable. Firstly, the controls are excessively complex. Rather than having a 4-way joystick and using that to navigate the playfield, you have a 2-way joystick with separate reverse and thrust. There is also fire, smart bomb and hyperspace, making 5 separate buttons to get used to. For me, that's far too many, and I often struggled to hit the right one when things got hectic. Secondly, the game is clearly designed to punish the player. It's not necessarily unfair, other than occasionally spawning enemies on top of you, but beyond the first level, the rate of enemies appearing ramps up, taking your people until all the enemies become mutants, or the enemies shoot you directly. It's definitely possible to get on top of this where you can pick the enemies off and keep the game going, but I wasn't enjoying it enough to put the time in to get to that point, so gave up to avoid further frustration. Some people certainly were able to get over that frustration barrier either this week or in the past, so let's take a look in the scores. We had 15 submissions this week, which is a couple less than usual, and we had a couple of folks who chose not to play at all due to the frustration in this game. That was Mark and Mr. Cosine. I don't blame them, I certainly don't plan on playing this game again. This is reflected in my placing this week. 10th is my lowest place all season. Grinding out another few thousand certainly would have moved me up, but I just didn't want to do it. We've got another point score for Robert in 9th. Milthy has taken his first points of the season, with a good effort in 7th. We've got a return from Schmuppinlovin in 6th, and Big Juffer has done well for 5th. Colin and Ian have done very well to break the 30,000 barrier. Both I think enjoyed the game this week. Then, our top 2 are the usual suspects. Great effort from 10 Shearers to do 67,000, double the 3rd place score. But as no surprise, our expert player who really enjoys this game has taken the win once again. Well done to Andrew with a tremendous 229,000 points, taking a dominant victory this week. I've got the histogram once again here. This is as close to a normal distribution as we're going to get. We've got a tight grouping that spreads evenly in each direction. This is likely due to the fairly linear scoring system of this game. We saw similar for Asteroids last season. You can see 10 Shearers has separated himself from the pack with what usually would be classed as a stand-up performance. But over on the right, we have what statistically would be classed as an outlier. An extremely dominant performance, 10 times what most people were scoring this week. And here is the return of the difficulty curve. This plot I think really shows what a tough game this is, but also that it's doable with enough skill and experience. We see the line climbing initially, showing that moving to around 20,000 is achievable for most people, but after that is extremely flat, with the game really ramping up in difficulty. However, for those that can get used to the game enough to get beyond that, then higher scores are achievable, and the difficulty doesn't increase as much as that earlier part of the game. Now we've seen this twice, let me know what you think. With this week done, let's see how things have changed on the leaderboard. There has actually been quite a bit of movement given how late in the season we are. That good performance and first points from Milthy has moved him straight into 13th, pushing those below him down. Robert has drawn level with Mr. Cosine and Retrotron 2084 for a 3-way tie for 10th. Colin's best performance this week has seen him move into 8th, ahead of Mark who didn't play. Ian has also had a good week and has moved ahead of Paulie Moz. My poor week has seen Big Juffer take 3rd, moving 7 points clear of me. And finally at the top, we see the places change hands once again. These two have been 1st and 2nd for 3 weeks in a row now. That win for Andrew has meant he's regained his lead, but it's only by 4 points, so we've still got all to play for. Let's see what this week's game is. So we've got 4 more games this season, and our next game is going to be a classic from Capcom, and that's Commando, released in 1985. This game is a vertically scrolling run and gun, and whilst not the first in the genre, it certainly pushed it forward and was extremely popular at the time. In Japan, the translation of the name is Wolf of the Battlefield, which I think is a great name and much less generic than Commando that saw an unrelated film of the same name come out also in 1985. For Alan, I know he's a big fan of the C64 version and the absolutely banging Rob Hubbard soundtrack. He's made at least 6 videos about the game, including an arcade perfect my arse, which is well worth checking out. You play as Super Joe, and you basically need to just kill everything in your path. There's not much story here. Last week, we had one of the hardest arcade games, and this week, we must have another one of the most difficult. Capcom in the 80s were known for putting out tough games, and Commando will punish the uninitiated. I've played this a few times before, but not put much time into it, so it'd be good to learn the game and hopefully make some progress. It certainly can't be any worse than Defender in that regard. We'll be playing the World ROM with default settings. I hope you all enjoyed playing some Commando, and I'll be back next week with the results. See you then.